Hello and welcome to this Sunday's afternoon Art with Andrew. This is my episode 2. I'm going to make a little shell monster out of yellow and pink fluorescent Primo Sculpey. Hi Cheryl. Thanks for joining me today. So I'm going to start off, I'm going to do a yellow base with this shell monster. And then I have a pre-baked tooth. I'm going to give him a little tooth. And I've got a couple beads I'm going to use for the eyes. So this came in a multi-pack. So it's a smaller block than what you normally buy. But those multi-packs are pretty nice to get. So you can get a bunch of different colors, especially if you're doing smaller projects like the shell monsters. I use a lot of the multi-packs for my one-eyed blobs. Get this opened up, and I'm going to use the pink for some spots for this guy. Alright, I think I got all the plastic off there. Get it out of my work area. This stuff's pretty soft, it's pretty fresh. Sorry, needed a drink. So we'll get going here. Hey Miz, awesome. Yeah, this is just kind of an impromptu one that I decided to throw up since I wanted to get a shell monster made. But I will be doing the viewer choice or viewer input Let's Make a Monster live stream next Sunday. So anybody interested in joining in on another one of those, I had a lot of fun with that. So have a lot of fun with all of them. So we're just getting this nice and soft. Hi Jesse. Yes, Shell Monster Sunday. It's got a nice ring to it. To change my Let's Make a Monster to a different day and have the Sundays be Shell Monsters. Sure, my day's going good. I made some blobs earlier. I've got a convention at the end of this month, so I wanted to get a bunch of those made up for singles and blind bags, so I did some of those earlier. Hope your day is going well. Ms. says, pity I'm working on a doll and I have my clays packed away tonight. Well, at least you have something creative to work on. Yes, Jesse, get shell-shocked. Hi, Jessica. All right, I think this is about where I want it to be. It's not quite sticking to itself as much as I like when I rolled it over, but we'll get it shaped out how I want. So with these shells, I did clean it up, and I do it kind of sculpt it in kind of a tube type, so it can go down in there. I do have this old bottle of translucent liquid clay that I'll put in there that kind of help it adhere to the shell. But if it's loose afterwards, I will put some super glue in there. But you can bake the shell, there's not an issue with that. At least I haven't had one yet. So is anybody else working on art today? So we'll get this guy rolled out. I don't want to, this is probably my most common type of shell monster where I have the little slug kind of type guy peeking out. Jesse did some inking this morning, but cleaning the studio now. Yeah, my studio's a disaster. I'd like to do a studio tour, but it's so bad. This area looks clean. Everything else, disaster. So you can kind of see the general shape of this little guy now. Now I'm gonna sculpt in some indentions for his eyes. You'll notice when you do that, you're putting pressure on it. It's gonna, oh, it popped out. Kind of leave a mark there, which is fine if it's baked like that. But if you end up pulling it away, you'll want to smooth that out, so that way that doesn't look out of place. One step at a time. So these little beads here have a hole in them because they're made for like necklaces. So I'll make sure the holes are kind of lined straight up and down. So that way they're kind of covered when they go in here. And I'm going to add a little more clay around the eyes. So that'll cover that up. And I did wash my hands before I did this, but I already noticed little specks in this yellow translucent or fluorescent clay. I think it's going to be very, very bad for picking up little specks of things. But I'm going to cheat the system, and I could clean that up. But since I'm going to do pink spots, I'm going to try to cover them up with the pink spots and do those pretty random. And Ms. says that her studio / her entire apartment is always a disaster, but a creative one. Well, that's awesome. All right, so we've got the basic shape there. Get him to stay. So I've got this big old tooth. So I'm going to start it down a little bit lower. I might cut some of this off because it doesn't, I'll cover it up with the clay to do kind of a lower, you know, like I'm holding it up to my face like you can see. So I'm going to sculpt a lower jaw for him and give him an underbite with one tooth. So one of my favorite artists is Chris Reiniak, and he does a lot of little monsters with a tooth. That's where I got that idea. I will not claim that as my own. So I'm always inspired to do stuff like that. Crescent Sunblaze, hi. Hey, looks like I was able to join again. Just got back from a stressful day at the art studio, so I'm looking forward to some relaxation. Loving how the little guy's looking so far. Thank you. Yeah, sometimes I don't give myself enough relaxation time, and then when I do, I feel guilty because I'm not doing stuff that I want to do. Like, I mean, I don't, you know, art projects. I have way too many hobbies. I don't know if anybody else has that problem. So for now, I'm going to take him out of here as I sculpt. Take him out of the shell. I'll bring him up to the camera a little bit and get a better look. That yellow is kind of hard to focus on. Notice like the different contrast in the lighting and stuff, but we'll bring him up. Oh yes, Jesse, I know you do. Not for sure if you have more than me, but it's probably a pretty close close matchup there. It's not a competition, but you know. Ms. says, oh yes, too many ideas to try, too little time. Oh, I get that. So, all right, we've got the tooth in place. Now I want to bring a lower, give him his chin, lower jaw area, a little bit of a lip. So I'm going to take a little more of the fluorescent. Just going to soften this up a little bit more. Look at this, nice and soft. Make it easy to sculpt and attach to the rest of it. shape I want. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to flatten out a little bit. Yeah, this yellow translucent, I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's really picking up a lot of stuff that, you know, other stuff wouldn't. Or translucent, yellow fluorescent. I know the difference. So I think that's a little too big for this guy. The rest of this yellow that I've left over is going to get mixed in to make some blobs, so then it doesn't matter if it's got some other specks. Crescent Sunblaze says, oh, absolutely. Most of my relaxation comes from drawing, not my assignments, but I want to draw. It's important to balance it all out. Yeah, I totally agree. I'm obviously, you know, love doing different forms of 3D art. I'd like to do some more 2D art. I also collect comics that I never seem to have time to read. I play video games. And I, you know, have a backlog that's ridiculous. Watch movies. And then just the normal, you know, social events and doing my conventions and everything. So yeah, it's hard to find a balance, and I know Jesse and I have talked about this before, and I don't know if there's, you know, an actual solution. Well, I mean, there's probably a solution, but I don't know if there's a solution that'll work for me. So hopefully you guys can see how his little face is turning out. Jesse says our therapeutic habits become our stress. I think my wife would definitely agree with that. Although my day job stresses me out too, but I don't know if it's any more or less than my art. At times, not now. I'm pretty relaxed right now, I think. Look at that. Look at that little guy. So I want to give him a little more around the eyes, and then I'll start doing the pink. So basically I'm just going to make some eyelids, but I want to make them pretty thin because I don't want to cover those eyes up too much. I like the way the glass beads are. I like the way they reflect the light. So I want to make sure that's still pretty visible. So I've got my snakes of clay here. And I'll just roll out the tips here so that's kind of goes to a point. And just by experience, I kind of go with, you know, like, oh, this looks about the right size, but 9 times out of 10, I'll still have to reshape them. So, and if you see here, if we make it more angle, he's going to look mad. But we don't want him to look mad. He just wants to be just kind of there. He doesn't really have a smile on his face, but I think it's, you know, I'm amused that, like, if you angle it this way, it's going to give a sad look, and then angle it that way, it gives it a mad look. And it's really that simple. I mean, just to give expressions to some of your creatures. So you'll see here, this is a little bit too long. So what I'm going to do is I'll mark it with my X-Acto knife, and I went a little bit in because I'm going to have to point, you know, make a point on that one. Then I'm going to take that one down. Crescent Sunblaze says, depending on the amount of classwork I have to do, I might draw one of these little monsters you've made. They look like they'd be fun and easy to draw. This is a friend of mine, Axton, a good friend of Jesse's, has made a shell monster as kind of a kaiju. So he's got him like attacking a tank, and, you know, I think he's breathing fire. And I don't have the picture out right now, which is a shame because I usually have it out, but I've had to redo some stuff and still need to clean up. If you do the drawing, be sure to either tag me on Facebook or Instagram. All the links to my social media will be down below once the video is over. I didn't see an option to add a description beforehand other than just the name. Maybe it's there, but try to get it online as quick as I can. But I'll go in and add that to my description, so you can always contact me on other social medias if you want to share that with me. That'd be awesome. All right, so we've got one eye done. And we're going to add the top eyelid to this one. I'm just putting a little bit of pressure to get it to bond with the clay that's already there. And again, I know I'm going to need to shorten up this lower eyelid. So get that in place. Hopefully this is visible enough, and I might try a different camera angle with my iPad sometime. I just didn't want to mess with it today. I know this pretty much works, but since it's not edited, I can't go in and zoom in on spots like I can with my edited videos. All right. Oh, I'm going to trim a little more off that and get a little bit of a point there. So, come on. And I'm bringing up, I'm going to merge with the upper eyelid. Now I'm going to take this little ball tool, smooth in that lower one. Make sure you're putting enough pressure so these pieces bond together. Got a little bit of a crumb on the top there, so I'm going to smooth that out. Now I'm just adding a little bit of texture too. I think this will help with the detail. Make it look like that was, like those eyelids are coming off and then they would be part of the creature. If that makes any sense at all. Sometimes I, babble and don't know if I'm making sense. And by sometimes I mean most of the time. All right, let's see how he sits in there. And I think he'll probably definitely need to be glued because he's not going in too far. But I think I will bake him with some liquid clay in there, and then if he's loose, I'll pull him out and reglue him. Jesse asked, do you feel pressure to make Shell Monsters extended family to Carl? Carl is the one Axton has that he named Carl, and this is the look. It's just kind of the simplest style, and it's always, has kind of a cute look to it, which is what I want out of my Shell Monsters and blobs. So it just works. I have tried some more octopus style ones, and I do snail ones. Kind of depends on what I'm in the mood for. And then I have my ones that I use the bottom of the clam shells, which are totally different. I always do those with a pearl. Miz says it reminds me of Ludo from Labyrinth. I can kind of get a Ludo vibe from this. I love Ludo. It smell bad. Poor Ludo. He always just seems kind of sad. All right, I think I am happy with the basic design there, so I'm gonna clean my hands off with some baby wipes here. Not gonna go anywhere, but you won't see me. But I want to make sure to get as much of that yellow off before I start working with the pink. I am gonna pick up my yellow scraps, kind of setting them off to the side. Another thing I can do is clean off the instruments. So if I'm putting on the pink, I'm not transferring that yellow. It's probably one of the worst things working with colored clay is you always have to clean your hands if you don't want to have that pigment transfer. One thing, if you use like a, like Sculpey 3, or Super Sculpey rather, and you're going to paint it and you don't have to worry about it. Also, I use Super Sculpey a lot for molds. I have some ideas for some magnets coming up that I want to have ready for Grand Comic Con that I'm going to do out of resin. So I'll sculpt them out of Super Sculpey, and then I will pour silicone mold maker over them. And then once that sets up, then I'm going to make some resin molds or resin casts out of them and some crayons. All right. So getting all ready here. Get this block of pink, fluorescent pink clay out. Get it unwrapped. And I do have some storage containers that have like dividers in them that I use for my scraps of clay. I'm going to bring one up here real quick. So this is, I have two of them. This is a full one. No, not full, but it has, you know, a bunch of scraps from different things. And this is what I'll go into when I want to work on some blobs and I have extra clay left over from some other projects. I can go in there and use up some of that stuff. So I just cut off a small block of it because I know I'm not going to need it all. I'm going to get this softened up. And I will, you know, pull him out and add the spots. So, I mean, there is a chance I'll get a little bit of pigment transfer, but it's not the same as when you soften up the clay and you have it all over your hands. But there's a few different things you can do to clean that up. You can use a Q-tip with rubbing alcohol. Some people sand their pieces after they're baked, so that's another option. If it is white clay, sometimes they'll use a little bit of acrylic white paint to kind of touch it up. Now you kind of have to watch when you're touching up with paint that, you know, it's just like touching up a wall that you had painted years ago and the color's not going to quite match. It's the same with the, it'd be hard to get your paint to match exactly to the color you used on your clay. So what I'm going to do is roll out a little snake of this pink clay. And then, look like it picked up something right there. All right, so I'm going to roll out a little snake of this pink clay. And then I'm going to cut it up into different sizes, and those will be my spots. Come on. So, I don't have a necessarily certain pattern. Lots of times I'll go with doing one side, which seems to be to my right or the creature's left. But I noticed he had that speck on his left side, so I'm going to cover that up and maybe I'll use that as a starting point and branch off from there. That's probably more than enough. So I'm going to pull this little guy out of here again. So I'm just going to roll this in my fingers, get a nice, doesn't have to be totally round, but roundish, round, not circular, I guess I should say. And look at that. I think that's a really good contrast with that yellow. All right. Let's get some of these more, some more of these rounded up Round it up. Huh? Get it, Jesse? Is Jesse still there? So, just getting all these into a little bit of a ball shape. And then I can just press them, and then I'll press them against my sculpture. Ah, Jesse's still around. Speaking of around, have any of you seen the documentary Behind the Curve? It was on Netflix, and it's about people that believe the Earth is flat. I'm not going to get into, too much of a debate here, but I just can't comprehend that type of thinking. Didn't know if anybody had any thoughts on it. Yeah, I think this he's going to have a lot of, he or she will have a lot of spots. Jesse flatly rejects that theory. I'm not saying there's not some government conspiracies on things or some government cover-ups, but I don't think the flat Earth is one of them. Yeah, Miz, it's pretty interesting. It's these aren't, these are educated people. Like, it's not just some random person that just like, I think the Earth is flat. These are, scientists and doctors, and they have a whole group, and I just can't wrap my head around it. All right, we're getting some fun little spots on this guy. All right, get all these placed. I know he's got a lot of little specks of things on his back here, but like I said, he's going to be glued in, so we won't notice those. Get some of these on the front. Get this one on his forehead. Yeah, Jesse says, seems like a pretty easy theory to prove or disprove charter a plane. Yeah, it's like everything that you could do to prove that it was round, they would have some government cover up. They never chartered a plane, but they tried to set all these poles, and they would shoot a light beam or like a laser, and they're saying if the laser went straight across, that means the Earth is flat because the poles were exactly the same height sticking up. And the thing is, they didn't go straight across, and they had a reason why. Like they came up with an excuse instead of saying, "Oh, yep, we're wrong." It's just, I don't know. They had this theory that it was basically like a giant snow globe. Hi, Dree. Miz says, I have a coworker who is usually really smart, but he had no idea that the Earth had layers, a core, and magma volcanoes were created. That's interesting. All right. right. I'm really liking that. I think I'm going to bring some more spots on this little character. He says, I just got in. Happy to see you. Well, thank you. I'm happy you're here. I appreciate people tuning in to watch me make my silly little monsters and just sit here and babble on about stuff. Trying to keep things interesting. Just gonna do a few more spots for these guys. I thought when I rolled those out, and sometimes on these small pieces, it's easier to put them on the tip of the needle tool like that. Hi, Heather. So Heather is my wife. She's at work. She says, interesting topic choice while sculpting. I think I missed something. Oh, we're talking about something being around. I was talking about my spots being around, and then I got off onto the subject about the people who thought the earth was flat. Jesse flatly rejects that theory. You know, I'm definitely not one to talk politics or anything like that, but that flat earth thing, I don't think that's necessarily talking politics, but you know, like I stay away from any kind of thing like theories like that, but it's just that's just so out there, so outlandish to me. Oh, Dre, I'm sorry. You know, I'll try to stick with art. I'm definitely not one that should be talking current events or uncurrent events like that. Jesse says you don't have to go into it in depth, but did you watch the AEW pay per view? I did not. Sadly, I can't even watch their live shows. I watched some of the stuff they have on YouTube. For those who don't know, AEW is a new professional wrestling. That's one of my other hobbies is watching professional wrestling occasionally, but I haven't really watched it much in the past few years. Yeah, so I'm game for talking about, you know, comics, professional wrestling, superheroes, Star Wars, sci-fi stuff, obviously monsters. Okay, Heather, you don't have to be mean. All right. Miz says last time she watched wrestling, Hulk Hogan was still a star. I would definitely say the 80s and 90s were my favorite times. Always liked the Ultimate Warrior, like Sting back then, definitely Legion of Doom. So, Ms., what is big in Sweden? Is there a form of entertainment or a form of type of sports, or is there? All right, almost done with the spots up here, I think. Just cut off a few more little sections of the fluorescent pink. Says she's not good at current trends. You know, and that's funny because I wasn't. And then a lot of the stuff I'm into became popular. You know, like in the 80s, I was made fun of for reading comics and, you know, even watching wrestling, which got pretty popular, but it still wasn't, you know, as accepted. And sci-fi movies unless it was so mainstream like Star Wars, or you know even video games were kind of looked down upon, and now they're like the top form of entertainment. I just kind of go with what I like and not worried about what's the most popular. Miz says, me and my friends tend to like the same things we did in the 80s. Yeah, I can relate to that. I'm still watching giant monster movies and reading comics, and it's kind of an evolution of things. Dree says, wrestling isn't really a thing here either. It's more about soccer normally, and cycling and ice skating. Well, without going to exact details, Dree, where are you from? At least, like, what country? I don't want anybody giving away personal information here. Roll out a little more pink fluorescent. I decided I want to keep doing spots in this little character. Oh, we got windmills and clogs. That's awesome. Crescent assemblies. Oh, I know. I'm old enough to be still amazed that, I'm sculpting on YouTube Live, and I have people from not only like people in the same state like Jesse, who's 4 hours away, but I have people from other countries watching me sculpt. I mean, this is just crazy. Technology is awesome if used properly. Jesse put, total tangent, I just got something made in China. Do you think coronavirus can be spread via Amazon Prime? Hashtag washing my hands now. Well, Jesse, you should always wash your hands. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. And I think if there was a concern with it, they wouldn't let us import stuff. I do know I ordered the Conan Classics Super 7 figure, and he was shipped to the docks. Super 7 had him, and all the packages were damaged. So they had to ship him back to China to get repackaged. But then, because of the coronavirus, the Chinese government supposedly extended Chinese New Year. I guess that's an optional thing. I think the government, kind of decides everything there, obviously. And so that's been delayed. But I haven't even gotten an update if that's even gonna, when that'll happen. And to me, that's like such a minor thing when, the grand scale of things going on in the world is just, I found it interesting. Miz put, that's an amazing part of this feature, being able to share things across the world easily. Yes, and also I think of that when I'm sculpting things. I made a Swamp Thing bust a couple of years ago, and I was able to just go online and find all these images. And normally, I mean, I would have Swamp Thing comics, but if you wanted to get a variety of images of something, you would have to at least go to the library or save, books and magazines that you've gotten. I mean, now if something comes out and people say, hey, can you make this character from Paw Patrol? Well, I'm not going to have any Paw Patrol books or anything like that, but I can definitely go on the internet and do the old Google of Paw Patrol. Crescent Semblay says, I ordered a Yatuja figurine from China, and I hadn't been able to get him since he can't be shipped out. Sort of a shame, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, it's a bummer, but you definitely don't want to have any issues, and you don't want anybody else to have issues. So as you can see, I decided to just keep doing spots on this little guy. Because why not? I'm having fun creating and chatting. So Oh yeah, so he's still going to stick out quite a bit. I'm going to cover some more of the back. I'm just going to cut off more pieces. Oh, sorry, Dree. Yeah, I started the video like normal and showing the stuff, and yep. So he's gonna go in the shell. I've done a lot of shell monsters, and this is my most common style. Jesse asks, "What are you most looking forward to in your upcoming shows?" Well, the first show I have is Grand Comic Con, which I know you'll be at. I think you'll be at most of the shows I'm at. That one I'm just, it's a lot of fun, and it's kind of local to me, so I get to see more people I know, and just catching up with friends and meeting people and hopefully promoting my channel. And I know there's a few people that watch my channel go to that one, so that's always fun to talk to them in person. Before the chat gets too far, Liz says, I've ordered quite a lot from China, and according to one seller who has said the virus doesn't survive long enough to be harmful after several weeks in transit. Oh, so there you go, Jesse. Just when you get your stuff from China, just let it sit there for a while. Leanne, hi, first time here. Hi, Leanne. Nice to have you on the live stream. Oh, and yeah, Heather says there were 2 tests on coronavirus surviving on paper. It lasted 4 to 5 days. On the other, it lasted 3 hours. That's good. I mean, because that could definitely make things a lot worse. Well, of course, Leanne, I appreciate everybody coming on here. I know time is valuable, and I want people to know that I appreciate them hanging out with me on a Sunday afternoon, and hopefully I give them a little bit of entertainment and a little bit of inspiration. All right. Just kind of going crazy here with the spots. And once I get all these spots on this, I'll bring him up to the camera a little bit more. I'm gonna have to do that overhead, long overhead shot to make sure everything stays in frame when I'm sculpting. He says, love the spots, go nuts. Absolutely. I will mention for you guys, and for anybody who watches this later, make sure, if you haven't already done so, subscribe to my channel. If you want to know when I'm live again, make sure to turn notifications on. I'm really enjoying the live streams, and I'm just going to pop it on whenever. But I do have one scheduled one, which will be Let's Make a Monster live stream next Sunday, March 8th at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. And what my Let's Make a Monster live streams are is I am live, obviously, and I have a color picked out and softened up, and then I make a monster based on viewer input. Dree asks, are there any big projects you're working on? Yes, absolutely. I am working on a giant Godzilla. It'll be for Omaha KaijuCon, so that'll be at the end of May. But I am taking some pictures and stuff like that. He can't really be done on a live stream, and he's really big, so I can't really even get him in frame very well. I can show, like I can do footage of working on certain areas of him, but I'll do like an edited video of him on my YouTube channel when he is complete. So hopefully I have him done on time. Because Heather is correct. He's pretty big. He was about 3 feet tall, and I've kind of leaned him over. I've got the base done of him, but he's going to be covered with Warbler. For those of you who don't know what Warbler is, it's a thermoplastic, and I actually have a video. It's called What is Warbler? But you heat it up with a heat gun, and then you can kind of sculpt it over something. So my method is I sculpt out of foil, and then I cover with Warbler, and then I sculpt more with more Warbler. That way it gives me a nice base. So I am noticing some specks in here in his mouth, so I'm going to get some rubbing alcohol and clean that up a little bit. So just take some of the rubbing alcohol, get a little bit on a Q-tip. Yeah, thankfully Dre, he's hidden down in the basement, so nobody has to worry about that yet. I have kind of startled some people with my Swamp Thing, because that's a pretty big piece. So you can see how it picked up some of the yellow, and then it'll get any of those specks that are on the surface. So I'm just going to clean up a little bit here in case any of this shows, but I think that's going to be too far down. All right, let's get him placed in his shell. I'll bring him up to the camera. Get a good look of how he's going to look after he's baked. Dree asked, there's no cleaning up after you bake it right. I made a white cloud creature, and after baking I noticed fuzzies I hadn't seen earlier. He's adorable. Thank you. Crescent Sunblaze. Dree, one thing you can do if you're noticing like those little specks in the clay after it's baked, you can take some sandpaper or a sandpaper or a sanding block, and you can lightly go over it. Now that will affect the surface, so you might want to get like a really fine one if it really bothers you. Something I mentioned earlier in the live stream is you could take a little bit of white paint and you could paint that area. But that might be noticeable too with the contrast because of the different finish. But those are my two recommendations if you notice something that's really bothering you after it's baked. All right, so this is just some liquid clay. It's a bakeable, and I use it as kind of a glue. Yeah, let me know on the next live stream how that worked for you. Just take it slow. Yeah, the nail file might work. To me, like a finer sandpaper, like the nail file might make it more rough. I would try, if you're not, worried about the piece and you want to experiment, I would go ahead and just, test it out on that. I just don't want you to ruin your piece if it's not that bad as it is. Thank you, Jesse. All right, so there's our little yellow and pink shell monster of the day. All right, well, thanks everybody for tuning in today. I'll probably be live again sometime this week, maybe tomorrow, maybe Tuesday, maybe both days. I don't know, just kind of whatever works. So I appreciate everybody coming on. I enjoyed chatting with everybody. It was great, a lot of fun. And remember, guys, never stop creating. Bye.